Welcome to our next installment of the series, Origins of the Roman Empire. In this episode, we will look at the ancient area of Lazio. Why did migrants settle in this area back then? And under what conditions did the inhabitants live? Firstly, we have to clarify how large the Latin settlement area was at that time, because it is not coherent with today's Lazio. To the east, the area was bordered by the Sabine Mountains and the Equi. In the south, from the Volscian Mountains, in the west by the Tyrrhenian Sea, and in the north by the Etruscan hills, which the Tiber flows through. Furthermore, it is assumed that the Latins also settled in Campania and the landscapes that were inhabited by the Lucanians and Brettians. However, these areas were later either Hellenized by the Greeks or conquered by the Sabines. Only the Latins in Lazio were able to hold its own against other tribes, in this case against the Sabines and the Nordic neighbors. There were numerous volcanic elevations near Rome, which led to the formation of craters. This also created the Albanian hills, where the Latin tribes settled. To distinguish the Latin communities founded outside this area, they referred to the Albans as Old Latins, Prisci Latini. The original area of Lazio was only 34 square meters. Today's Lazio is about 500 times larger. Lazio means something like flat or plain because it is relatively flat land in contrast to the nearby Sabine Mountains. However, the changing inclines and descents in the area led to water pools. In summer, these pools evaporated, resulting in toxic gases, aria cattiva. Farmers protected themselves through clothing, food, and the choice of hours of the day. The farmers wore animal fleece and heavy woolen fabrics for protection. A permanently burning stove fire drove away the bad air. Nevertheless, the area is fertile and the soil is loose and easy to work. Due to the many swamps, the arable land is relatively small and the habitable area is densely populated. The harvest is twice a year, and in addition, the farmers make a living from milk production and pasture farming. Water supply is particularly challenging in mountainous areas, except the Alban Hills. The Latin words vicus, house, or pagus, district, indicate that the families settled together in one place. However, these gender cooperatives are not considered independent units, but rather part of a political community, civitas or populus. This community is obliged to mutual legal obligations, to collective defense, and to attack. There were no town centers yet, so the meeting place was the center of the community. Every 8th day, the farmers met there. In the event of war, the cattle were brought to this place for protection, because this place was usually protected by earthworks, weirs, and piles. The Alban Hills are named after the original seat of the ancient Latin tribes and the motherland of Rome. They represented an ideal settlement point. There was healthy air, fresh springs, and it was an easily defendable location. That's why this area was probably the first to be settled. Other towns, such as Lanuvium, Aricia, and Tusculum, were formed on the slopes. Other Old Latin colonizations were, for example, Tibur, Prenoste, Labici, Gabii, Nomentum, Laurentum, or Rome. We will look at the founding of Rome in more detail in the next episode. These cities formed a community in terms of religion, language, and institutions. Each of these places was politically sovereign and was ruled by a prince, with the participation of the Council of Elders and the Assembly of the Free Men. The board traditionally belonged to the district within whose borders the holy site lay. In the case of Lazio, that was Alba. Initially, this association consisted of around 30 authorized communities. The focus of this association was the annual Latin festival, Feriae Latinae, on the mountain of Alba, Mons Albanus, today Monte Cavo. Everyone met there and offered a bull sacrifice to the Latin god, Jupiter Latiaris. Each community had to bring a set number of foods with them for the sacrificial feast. During the festival, there was a truce throughout Lazio. There was a common jurisdiction that was allowed to enforce sentences up to and including death. The marriage community was allowed to settle throughout Lazio, acquire property and trade. The districts had arbitration and federal courts among themselves, and in the event of war, they fought together under an appointed federal commander. However, it is not certain whether there was an obligation to participate in the war or not. In the next episode, we will look at the city of Rome for the first time. Why did the Latins settle there? What are the oldest districts? And why did Rome rise so quickly to become the most important city of the Latins? You'll find out all this and much more in the next episode. Until next time, your geek philosopher.